Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Chew's Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives. Welcome to the January 27th, 2026 edition of Chew's Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. You can email me at richard@WCPT820.com and follow me on X, Instagram, Spoutable, Substack, Threads, Blue Sky, almost said Blue Skin, Blue Sky, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Chew's Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. The great Patty Vasquez driving you home. It's The Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. And, of course, make your way over to our Heartland Signal digital platform. And as I said yesterday, we are loaded with a tremendous amount of articles and posts right now. I won't read through them all, but everything from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry responding to J.D. Wet Pants Vance and his visit to the city. And, it just starts there. And the protesters out in minus 15-degree weather. So make your way over to Heartland Signal. We've got a large amount of very well-written articles and posts that you guys will want to check out and be able to share. Sharing right now is a good thing. Sharing with the people that you know that are looking for more and more information to help in their, staying plugged into what's happening. Today, on today's show, our guests include Gwen Hurt, who is the one of the founders of a business that is a unique business that I wanted to chat with her about in Virginia. It's called Shoe Crazy Wine. Gwen's going to be an interesting story. African-American woman who decided to start a winery. So going to be pretty cool. Seth David Radwell, author, who's been with us before, American Schism, and Dr. Debra Houry, who is now part of a task force with Governor Newsom when it comes to Health and Human Services, and she was with the CDC until RFK Jr. decided to, until he was appointed in that role, the head of Health and Human Services. So she'll be with us to talk about what she's experienced since leaving and bring us up to speed on some things that I think she'll want us all to lean into, and we'll talk about that. So that's what's happening with us today. I said to Devin before we came on the air, I said, I'm angry right now. And I think, and sometimes anger is good, channeled in a direction to get something done. And that's where we are. I think that the country, the temperature that I'm getting from so many things that I'm reading, so many things that I'm, watching and viewing, is that the country's angry right now. And, in many ways, I know that we're a progressive station, so I don't want anybody to feel like I'm picking on anybody in particular on our side. But in many ways, we've got to ask ourselves the question, how did this happen? And I'm talking about specifically the shooting of Alex Priddy. I'm talking about how our country, which was moving along in such a really good direction, and with all of its ills and issues and imperfections and all of that, what is it that really kind of not what upset the apple cart, but what is it that we did or didn't do to let this happen, to get to a point where we couldn't see the light? And when I ask myself that question, what really comes to my mind is that we actually have for a long time been in denial as a country. And I'm going to say we here because I'm trying not to split the message when it comes to communities and culture and race. But our country's just been in denial for a long, long time. And when I was reviewing my thoughts last night and kind of trying to make some notes about how I wanted to present this morning, I've said this before. I've said versions of it before. But the reason we're here, you guys, is because our country, how did we get here? Why are we here? Our country's just been in denial. Now, that doesn't mean that as a country, you can't be happy and excited and feel great about things and look toward prosperity and look toward the future. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm always about, all right, let's work on the next. Let's keep on moving. Let's keep getting ourselves down the road. Everybody that knows me, and you guys hear me talk in that way because that's what's true to me. That's not just something I say. It's what I really feel. And the folks that know me personally, professionally, off the air know that that's who I really am. And I have to come back to say our country has frankly been asleep, and that's why woke is so relevant now, and why would someone tell you not to be woke? Because being awake means being aware and paying attention and knowing what's going on. And our, the privilege of all of us, some more than others, has allowed us to get to this point and then be in denial about where we really are. My father used to use a phrase, and I'm sure many of you have heard versions of it, but don't be urinating on me and telling me that it's raining. He made it a little bit more visceral than that. But don't do that. And when it's happening, be aware. Don't just put an umbrella up, but maybe do something about what's happening. And we've been unaware in a lot of areas. I'll give you an example. Something that my sister sent me this text early this morning. She's in D.C. You guys know that. I've said that before. And she said she can't believe that it's 7 degrees at 4:30 in the morning in Washington, D.C., metropolitan area. And it was a WTF moment for her because that's not normal there. But what is that a product of? It's a product of our sort of putting our heads in the sand about climate change and global warming. That's what that's really about. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday that lives in just outside of Charlotte, and she said, "Yeah, Richard, I can't believe, the cold pattern." And so my point is, we could talk about that. We could talk about 200 different items, but we are here because we've allowed ourselves to kind of sleepwalk to a point as a country where we've not been willing to say, wow, this is a problem, and what people are saying is problematic. We need to deal with this as a country. And it could be when it comes to income disparity, food uncertainty or food availability, as Liz schooled us on yesterday, certainly schooled me. It could be a variety of different things. But our country, as great as it projects itself to be, is really failing in some areas that are just should be the backbone of how we operate as a country. And I asked myself this question again last night. I said, what is it really going to take? We've got to make sure we get to the polls. And I just got a great text from 630. Thank you for that. A reminder. We got to make sure we do all of those things. We get to the polls. We fight hard. We stay in the mix. What I don't want to see is another person get assassinated and murdered on the streets of our country. Because, frankly, I will tell you that this is sort of the mirror that I put up on this. Someone said to me, I got an email. Someone says, "Chu, what do you think it's going to take for this to stop?" And I said, and I was talking to another individual about this, and I said, I don't know if it's going to take a white grandmother walking her granddaughter with pretty blue hair and pretty blue eyes and blonde hair to school to get killed by ICE. I don't know if that's going to stop this. A white grandmother walking her blonde-haired, blue-eyed granddaughter to preschool getting killed, if that's going to stop it. I don't know. I really don't know. But I did say is that what it'll take? Because I will say this in the context of our country's been asleep. and leaning way too far into denial. Because this which is happening right now, the reason I say white granddaughter with blonde hair and blue eyes is because Black America has been yelling that this is a reality for decades. We've been saying, look, y'all, there are some disparities in this country that we have to fix if we truly want to be the country that we charted ourselves on the path of being. And I know that there are a lot of people that can't hear those words because it hurts too much to recognize and acknowledge and then, frankly, deal with the fact that, you know, you've been in denial and you've been asleep and you've allowed your privilege to allow you to coast along. So I want people to, if I hate this to my core, that Renee Good and Alex Pretty had to sacrifice their lives for white America to be waking up, really waking up. And here's why I say it this way, and then we'll go to a break. People are making this sort of, wow, even some Republicans are saying, oh my God, this is too awful. Why does it take a political stripe to say that the truth? Why does it, and why do we, and Sarah Jones kind of leaned into this a little bit yesterday. If we had more time, we would have been able to peel this layers back a little bit more. Why do we need to wait for the person that's the Republican to be the one to justify the behavior that should be right for all of us, or the process and the feeling and the energy? Why do we need to wait for somebody like the white horse person, some person to ride in on a white horse to be the savior voice? I could give a damn what Marco Rubio or any other Republican, the senator and the other Republican from, I forget the states now, that are kind of stepping up and saying, who cares? We don't need to have them tell us what should be important. Just like I've said so many times, we don't need Republican talking points to make our point. It's damn time we stop right now. This is beyond unacceptable. This is, we'll stay with that word because the other word won't let us stay on the air. And I don't want Devin to throw his shoulder out reaching for the button. He's limbering up. But seriously, guys, you know, we are here candidly, frankly, because we've been asleep. We've allowed ourselves to be in denial. And I'm saying we because I consider myself a part of the team of Americans that want to fix this. As a Black American that's been saying this for a long, long time. So please, y'all, don't let there be another shooting like this, where it's a white grandmother walking her blonde-haired, blue-eyed granddaughter to preschool, minding her own business. Let's just not let that be where we are anymore. We have to push the people that are on the other side to do the right thing. We have to push ourselves to push them to do the right thing. And that means making phone calls. That means standing in the void. That means yelling and screaming. We cannot let our voices be turned down during this moment. It's not the direction we can allow ourselves to go. And all these players, from Greg Bovino on the ground to from Trump on down, his entire regime, we've got to understand that if we work hard enough and push hard enough and remain faithful enough, that we can push back on this. So I wanted to let you guys know that this is that moment where we do have to fight. And I hope everybody is willing to stay in the fight in this moment. The number is 773-763-9278. Excuse me, you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Straight Talk presents The Math of More. Here's how it works. When you say yes to more with Straight Talk, you're left with more for all the other good stuff. So getting an unlimited plan starting at just $25 a month equals more savings for your family's weekend adventures. And with a network covered by Verizon, you can share more from wherever you go. It's simple math, really. More equals more with Straight Talk. Available at straighttalk.com and Walmart. Taxes and fees apply. The $25 plan requires a compatible unlocked device and a new line of service. Additional terms apply.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-345-2789. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-345-2789. That's 800-345-2789. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-345-2789.
Think Theory Radio.
Manipulating the masses is more utilizing propaganda, gaining a wide quadrant of the public, where crowd manipulation is more focused, like the divisionary tactics of these political parties. They utilize certain talking points and phrases to target specific groups that they want to maneuver and empower and get them to do their bidding.
Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820. Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us this morning. I've gotten some great texts. Unify, we fight together. Shut down the government so that there's no funding for ICE. None of these are wrong, just different perspectives. Let me see what else we got here. Rissa in South Carolina, we've allowed racism to quietly fester below the surface, and Trump made it okay to be openly racist. No better words have been stated. And here's another one. White people can't be mad only when white people die. Part of the challenge that we have is that there's been this sort of thing for years, and I've said this here on the show a bunch of times. Can't talk about race, can't talk about sex, can't talk about religion, can't talk about money, can't talk about politics. BS. That's part of the reason that we're here. We could take those 4 or 5, and make them the head of the category, and then build topics below them. Why not talking about that thing leads to something crazy. We don't talk about money, it leads to income and disparity. We don't talk about race, we have what we're having right now. This is, because y'all got to understand, what's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, what happened here in Chicago, but what just happened in the last 2 weeks of this year is at the baseline of it, it's about racism. You all understand that? They say they're in Minneapolis to get rid of the illegals. Well, the illegals from where? And so it's become an issue, but ultimately it's about race. And so that's another one. So we could build a conversation around a PowerPoint presentation around these things that we aren't supposed to talk about and what those then lead to. And I'm saying to everybody, this is not the way that we can go right now. We've got an unruly administration where the dude that's in the White House is in the White House rather than in the jailhouse. Should be in the jailhouse, and we all know it, and the people on the right know it too. They know it as well. Those who voted for him, they know it as well. They didn't vote for budgeting. They didn't vote for the lower price of gas and lower price of, groceries. In the back of their mind, they may have said that groceries are too high. Yeah, they were too high for all of us. But I wasn't going to vote for this fool to have him fix it when he's crashed casinos. So people just need to be told, you did not vote for this. If you have a family member that says, I voted for him because of, and it's because of those things, they're full of you-know-what. That's not why they voted for him. They voted for him out of their own ineptitude and lacking in fecklessness as an American. And they want to blame somebody for their lacking in many categories. Devin's nodding his head. That's what they voted for. Because they're too weak to stand up on their own. And that's led to us having people get shot on the streets of America. It's not the first time, though. This is where I make the point about what Black Americans have been saying for decades. And that's why when I see things on social media, people ask, how come there aren't more black people out? Because we've been saying this for decades. We haven't been trying to say it. We've been saying it. And it's about the inequalities that are in this country. And I don't care if it's someone that's in rural Appalachia or someone that's in downtown America. Those things still persist. And so that's why I go, yeah, people want to see changes in their economic state, and they want to see those betterments in their lives. But at the end of the day, you can't tell me that you would, with clear-eyed and honesty in your heart, vote for somebody that told you what they were going to do, and you went along with it. So let's grab a quick call. Looks like our friend Kurt is here with us. Good morning, Kurt. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Richard, and thank you. So, anywho, it really started with Generation X back in the 1980s. And what I mean by that is, how do you convince a generation that has grown up with nothing other than, it goes back, well, let me just say it this way, kind of like the first-time voters this year, they only know a president like Donald Trump. And that's who they voted for, was Donald Trump, because that's their normal. How do you convince a whole generation, i.e. mine, the Generation Xers, who grew up under a trickle-down theory and made their living, albeit maybe mediocre compared to what their parents made under the FDR theory of, working from the bottom up versus from the top down? How do you convince that generation that the other theory is better when that's all you know? Not to mention, we don't know our history. We were basically the ones who never had to duck and cover under desks during a possible nuclear holocaust by our enemies. We never had to worry about a draft, except for the first 8 years of our lives. We've always had a woman's total autonomy of their bodies. We never had active school shooting drills. Generation X kind of dropped the ball because we had it too easy for ourselves.
But Kurt, listen. First of all, I appreciate you taking some hits for the country and for the world in terms of that. But there's a lot of people. It's an honorable and very notable thing to say. But and you're doing it based on data, so I appreciate that. And it's all of us that have dropped the ball. It's all of us who've, and Kurt, here's the crazy thing about it. On one side, this is why I said we want all of us to feel excitement and energy and love and prosperity and good and not have to worry about this craziness. I mean, that's ultimately what any society would want, is for its citizens to feel good about things and not have to worry about things. And when there's been success and when there's been progress, that you go, yes, that's who we are. That's any right-minded person, irrespective of their culture or gender, wants that.
Exactly.
And so feeling good about our progress is a good thing. The challenge is, in that same good feeling and that progress, and some might say that privilege, we've left too many people behind. And I don't just mean economically.
We left them racially, gender-wise, sexuality-wise, you name it. I mean, know, like, for instance, back in my day, what were the big issues in my day when I was coming up in college? It was the environment. That was the big thing, as far as that comes off the top of my head. At that time, we had an 80-20 split where people that were in their late teens, early 20s were more 80% to the left versus 20% to the right. Now, with all this stuff that we have, the Charlie Kirks and the Joe Rogans and the Richard Chews and the House Sparks and you name it, it's now a 50-50 split. It's not a 51-49 split. It's pretty even down the middle. So how did we get to that point? It's because we put ourselves in our silos. We don't look at resources beyond our beliefs. We need to start looking more on what the other side says. Like my dad said when I was growing up, you need to know all of your history, the complete round of history, so that you can win the argument, if anything else, to keep your left foot ahead of the Republican Party.
Your pop's right about that. And that's, that's why I this morning I thought about, how do I want to approach this morning, after seeing these two awful tragedies, and ask myself this question as I did last night. You know, I believe in my heart I know how we got here. And so for some people, it's hard to hear. And I mean all of us, of all communities. But at the end of the day, if we don't talk about this, if we don't fight, and if we don't recognize the fight that we have on our hands, then we're going to continue to be asleep and continue to move backward. And the blame
begins with us. And the blame begins with the media for not doing their job. Then the blame falls on us for not following up with what the media told us and questioning what the media has told us and looking at other resources, like I said, beyond what our own beliefs are. And that's true of everybody. We should basically be open-minded enough on all sides to look at both sides and come up with a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
And then like I said, it just squarely falls on the media, the corporate media, I should say, for not doing their job. And then it falls on us for not paying attention to the people who want those positions in power to do the things either for us or to us. Does someone want to do something for us, or do they want to do something to us? And right now, our leaders want to do to us. So therefore, we need to find leaders who will do for us.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
Beautiful, beautiful words, my man. Kurt, thanks so much for calling in. I got to hit this break.
Thank you.
But as always, good to hear your voice.
Later.
Be well. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM for Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
It's no laughing matter.
I've spoken to parents who have lost their children, unfortunately, due to nitrous oxide poisoning. These are products that are not meant to be played around with.
Kids and teens across America are increasingly inhaling nitrous oxide, better known as laughing gas, to get high. Here's Professor Andrew Yockey from the University of Mississippi.
Some of the signs that parents should be looking for: impulsive behavior, slurred speech, nausea, vomiting, also brief loss of coordination and balance. One of the major side effects of nitrous oxide misuse is that you can actually have paralysis in your body. People will start to have memory problems, they can't think straight, and that affects so many different things: walking difficulties, basic day-to-day functions.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Few spotty snow showers early today, areas of blowing snow likely as well. Mostly cloudy with temperatures holding rather steady. We'll have winds out of the northwest around 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, partly cloudy skies develop, a low near 1 above. By Wednesday, sunshine, a high of 15 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, a high around 13. Friday, chance for snow late, high of 15. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 14.
This is a WCPT Civil Rights Snapshot. Earl Lloyd was the star of West Virginia State's basketball team, leading them to 2 championship games in 1948 and 1949. Due to Lloyd's success, he was drafted by the Washington Capitals in the 9th round, and on October 31st, 1950, Lloyd became the first black player to play in the NBA. Joining an all-white team was intimidating, but my teammates were immediately welcoming, said Lloyd on the experience. However, some fans, even some commentators, were not so kind, one even using a racial slur during Lloyd's first game. Lloyd spent 9 seasons playing in the NBA, ending his career at the Detroit Pistons in 1970. After playing, Lloyd stayed in Detroit, becoming a scout and then later an assistant coach of the Detroit Pistons before breaking the color barrier again, becoming the first black head coach in the NBA. Lloyd was inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame in 2003. Please stay vigilant about our civil rights. The fight is never over.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us. Got an interesting text that's saying that's right. Richard Trader Donald Trump. This is the same guy who said the Central Park 5 needed to be executed. Never apologized. Same guy that said Barack Obama wasn't American, not born here. The same guy that sat for hours near the Oval Office, while his supporters stormed and ransacked the Capitol and did nothing. Right. So there should be no surprise of where we are and what's happening right now. And, the dark side of me could say it's because people are just bad people, but that's not where I stand. It's not what I actually believe. We got some serious bad actors in our communities across the country. Yeah, we've got a fight on our hands, and we've been saying it for the longest time. And I'm just hoping that people step up and recognize that the fight, we have this fight, and it's a fight that we can win if we just decide to buckle down and get into the moment. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we will pay attention this time, rather than sort of pass it off and say that we'll let someone else do the work. We'll let someone else fight this fight. So, all right. A couple of Choose Views news items, Devin. Let's bring a few things up to speed. Flight cancellations, power outages mount amid the storms that took place over the weekend. Flight cancellations and power outages across the country. Many airlines have canceled more than over 10,000 flights Saturday, Sunday, and yesterday, according to flight tracking site FlightWare. And the country has not seen a disruption of this magnitude since last year's government shutdown, according to CNBC. Even southern states saw severe drops, majority in Texas, Mississippi, and Tennessee, as early as Sunday morning and through late yesterday, according to the Washington Post. Unfortunately, there's also been 13 deaths amid this brutal winter storm, pummeling most of the Midwest, upper Midwest, and parts of the Northeast. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said her state had been hit by an Arctic age siege. 13 weather-related deaths were reported, and the cold has affected nearly 90 million people nationwide this week. An estimated 800,000 are still without power as of late yesterday. All right, consumers are giving up more than just alcohol this month as we wrap up January. While dry January has been the go-to New Year's resolution, a new challenge has emerged. No buy January. Some Americans are giving up buying non-essential items such as clothing and skincare products, according to the Wall Street Journal. A Nerd Wallet survey of more than 2,000 adults found that 26% of respondents have tried no buy January, with 12% jumping in on the trend this year. The trend comes as consumer sentiment remains relatively low, with Americans concerned about kitchen table issues such as affordability and a slow job market. Housing market's dilemma is also playing into this. Either buyers or sellers must lose. What does that mean? The tension in the U.S. housing market boils down to binary math. For homes to become more affordable, prices must drop. That would be great news for renters and bad news for owners, setting on a new near record of $34.4 trillion in housing equity. The result, according to the Wall Street Journal, is a stalemate with generational implications. For a return to 2019 buying power, median household income would need to climb 56% to $132,000. That's crazy. Microshifting is the hot new workplace trend. It's on the rise as more workers resist the constraints of a traditional schedule. Owl Labs defines the practice as structured flexibility with short, non-linear work blocks matched to energy, duties, and productivity. According to their research, the trend appeals to some 65% of workers. Employees are improvising solutions to reconcile the demands of their jobs with the new realities that are placed on their lives and how they work each day. And Apple is debuting, for those who are Apple folks, their new powered Siri next month. Apple is just weeks away from unveiling its revamped Siri powered Google Gemini's artificial intelligence models. Oh, that's a mouthful. The iPhone maker reportedly plans to tease its new AI-infused digital assistant by late February, according to Bloomberg. The long-awaited Siri update is the first to deliver on its AI commitments Apple made back in June of 2024. Early reports suggested the retooled Siri will be more conversational, similar to OpenAI's ChatGPT, and may run on Google's servers. So there you go, guys. A few Choose Views news items on this Tuesday morning, January 27th, 2026. All right. So a couple of things about what's happening up in Minneapolis. There's this, I guess you could say, a little bit of speculation that Trump's going to back away from their efforts there, that they may actually leave Minneapolis and go off to another city. That's not going to change anything necessarily. Them leaving Minneapolis is, we could call it, once again, I don't know if Trump, if the taco phrase or label is applicable here, because I want him to fail in the work that he's doing and the harm that ICE is causing. So I don't know if the taco label applies here. If they leave Minneapolis and they go to some other city because of this craziness and carnage that they've caused, my concern is that they're just going to get to another city, probably a blue city or a purple city, get settled in, and then start doing the same thing all over again. So the disaster that we see in Minneapolis, that we saw here in Chicago, that took place in Los Angeles, and in some ways in Portland and other cities on a smaller scale, that just going to another city doesn't fix the problem. I mean, if they really wanted to have an impact, and they're having an impact, but not the one that we need. If ICE was going to have any kind of an impact on immigration, then they'd go where the majority of the so-called people who are illegal, which is really a term that I try to stay away from using, but for description here, they would go there. They would go to those cities. They would go to those states. And what states are at the top of the list? And we said this yesterday, and we said it before. Florida and Texas. Florida and Texas have a larger number and percentage of population that would fit the narrative that they're trying to create. But they're not going to go there because those are, states that voted for him. And even though there are cities in those states that did not vote for him in terms of the percentage of blue or purple in the state, the metropolitan areas or metropolitan cities of Florida and of Texas, they're not. I'll be surprised if they go there. I think that I don't think that that's going to be a place that they're going to go to try to do anything because of their coziness with Greg Abbott and with Ron DeSantis. So I don't see that happening. So wherever they go next, if they leave Minneapolis in the next days or weeks, they will go and do the same thing, unfortunately. So that's why I come back to the point I made earlier about the importance of all of us fighting and fighting in a direction to resolve or to at least push back on this craziness and this carnage that's happening. The other question I have is, I don't have a question. I have more of a statement with a slight question. I've heard people say, so where's the NRA speaking up on the situation, particularly with Alex Priddy? Being able to have a gun, and all, checking all the boxes in that space. Whereas, I don't have an expectation of the NRA to speak up and say this was, they're researching, they're looking into, I don't care where the NRA is on this, because we know the NRA doesn't really care about people having the right to bear arms. They don't really care about that. They care about being a prostitute for the gun lobby. That's all they care about, or a pimp, depending on how you look at it. That's all. They don't care about the Second Amendment, and they don't care. Let me back up. What they care about is using the Second Amendment as a tool, a wedge, to divide the conversation about the Second Amendment. That's what they really care about. They want to use it as a tool on itself and to justify being able to be sort of this de facto lobbying group for the Republican that is in the White House, whichever Republican that it is. Because you hear nothing from the NRA when there's a Republican in the White House. But when there's a Democrat in the White House, they lose their damn minds. So right now, I have no expectation of the NRA or from the NRA to say or do anything other than continue their position.
They've actually come out against it and said it, Richard.
They said that.
They're saying, is lethal force the only action right now?
That could have been used?
Yes.
Great. I'm glad that they did. Thank you for that, Devin. But it's what's the word the phrase I want to use? It's a little bit too late. Thank you, Devin, for helping me through that. It's too late. They're right. And this is one of those moments where I guess people might say, well, a broken clock is right 2 times or twice a day. Yes, they're right. They're factually right. A lethal force was not necessary here for someone that was. But this is where they're wrong. They've constantly backed a person's right to bear arms. He had the right to bear arms. So for them to not also say, and I haven't read the statement, so I need to maybe pump my brakes here. But it would be nice for them to also say that not only was this excessive force or lesser force should have been used, but they need to back the right for him to carry the gun and make it plain that we stand on the business of a person being able to carry a gun. In the way in which we like to say that the Constitution is used in the other direction when it says I have a right to bear arms. So yeah, they said that they had to say, and thanks Devin for bringing that up. But it's like, at what point does an organization like that really realize that part of what they've done for decades is harm people? They've been more on the side of harming than they have been on helping, and they know they had to say this. The video doesn't lie. Thank you, Devin's like, they had to say this. They could not say anything other because then the hypocrisy that we've all known them to actually represent would have been, once again, on center stage. So it's break time. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back. WCPT 820 will be hosting a candidate forum for the 3 leading candidates for Illinois' open United States Senate seat in the Democratic primary on February 6th.
Please join us at the Plumbers Hall at 1340 West Washington in Chicago, or listen to the live broadcast.
Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, Representative Robin Kelly, and Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton will be discussing their stances on the issues and making their case for your vote.
WCPT hosts Patty Vasquez, Richard Chu, and of course Jonas Esposito will be moderating the forum.
To attend in person, go to heartlandsignal.com/WCPT820 and register. We'll have limited seats available, so please register early.
Meet the leading Senate Democratic candidates at a free WCPT Live Candidate Forum at Plumbers Union Hall, Local 130 on Washington Street in Chicago, Friday, February 6th.
The forum starts at 1 p.m. and is sponsored by Plumbers Union Local 130.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us. Yeah, I mean, Devin and I were talking about this during the break. Members are questioning. Listen, I could go. I could go on for I could go on about this NRA situation. I need to read the article, read the quote on my own, and then process it. I'll stick with what I said. I don't need to backtrack. It's a little bit too late, y'all, for any NRA spokesperson, current or past, to say what they've said. They've been at the tip of the spear, and I just got a text from our good friend Karen Byrne. They've been at the tip of the spear for so many, in terms of justifying so many deaths, school shootings, and all the rest. So they need to shut the you-know-what up, because candidly, we don't need the NRA to speak for us in this space. We saw what we saw. We know what we heard, and we know how the White House is trying to cover for the ICE agent and agents and leadership that are responsible for this. So we don't really need to hear a damn thing from the NRA, which is what I started with saying, that I don't have any expectations from them in the first place. And it goes back to something that I said earlier in the show. We have to stop waiting for that proverbial person or individual to ride in on the white horse to save us. We got to stop doing that. And I don't mean us literally, but, our country seems to, wait for the hero. And in the words of former President Obama, we're the hero we've been waiting for. We're the change we've been waiting for. And that's what it takes, guys. I mean, it's unfortunately, here's how I'll look at it. All of us are great in what we do and what we try to achieve in our lives and going forward. And we miss the mark a lot. And we just strive to try to get better. And we know we missed the mark, and we ask for help. And hopefully we have enough people around us to allow us to do better and inspire us to do better. And sometimes what happens is, with anything, I'll put our country in this vein. And if you guys are asking, why is Richard just talking about what we've missed and how we've been asleep and how, denial? Because I'll put it in this vein. I'll look at it like, if you've got a house and you got a gutter that's broken, and that gutter keeps dripping and dripping and dripping and dripping water, and it keeps affecting things, but you're kind of like, well, I'll get to it. And, water's pervasive. We all know this. We've seen the damage that water can cause and does cause. So we just keep waiting and waiting and waiting until, you start to see that there's some wood that's withering away. Then you start to see that, you get the point. You get where I'm going. And it all started because that gutter needed to be repaired, needed to be taken out and replaced, and something better put in. And in some ways, I see where we are as a country that way. And that may be way oversimplified, and I get if you guys are thinking that. So don't get too upset. I know where you might be. I'm just trying to make the point. We've allowed for decades, y'all, for our country to just keep kicking the can down the road when it comes to equality, when it comes to managing our resources, doing a better job at striving to be actually executing the goal of being the country that we say we are. This, as some folks better than me have said, this experiment with democracy. It did not happen overnight. It did not happen overnight. And in a few weeks, I'm going to be talking with a new person that will be joining our show about some things that relates to the Supreme Court. Little surprise. I'll just tease you guys with that a little bit. But the point I want to come back to and don't want to stray too far away from is we didn't get here overnight. What's happened in Minneapolis is not something that just happened overnight. We've gotten here because we let that gutter keep dripping water to the foundation, and to the point where, it created a bigger problem. And you could use that analogy so many different things. I mean, no one gains. We all struggle with weight, up or down. We struggle. There's health issues that we all struggle with. We have to pay attention, and if something doesn't feel right, we got to deal with it. And so that's now where we are. Is we've got to deal with this ailing body of ours as a country, and and the reason I take it presented it this way and maybe oversimplified it is that it's going to take some work. It just is. It's going to take all of us working toward this thing that we say we believe in and we want to protect. And I'm now expanding it from before we save our democracy, we've got to save our humanity and our dignity. Because what happened to Alex Preedy, what happened to Miss Good and others that we don't know about, that child that was detained and kidnapped, whatever you want to call, that is about our humanity being taken from us and our dignity, and in some ways more than our democracy. Because that child don't know a damn thing about democracy, but how they were made to feel, that's about humanity and dignity. The parents of Alex and the families of Miss Good, that was about their dignity and their humanity. That wasn't, I mean, it's democracy, yes, but those are the things that have to be reinstated and we have to take back. Mayor Brandon Johnson gets to be imperfect, but striving to make our city better and our state better and, frankly, our country better. But when he said humanity is what we have the responsibility to take back, he's spot on. And so I hope that you guys understand where I'm coming from with this and why this is deeply felt by me, that we the opportunity is what keeps so many of us excited, even in this crazy time when they're trying to it's like, what they're trying to do is walk down a windy street in Chicago like it's been with the cold weather that we've been dealing with the last, few weeks, certainly. It's like that. They're trying to, that feeling, and I'm sure anybody that's listening anywhere in the country, if whether they're in your warm climate or cold climate or somewhere in the middle, you've all felt that moment when you're gasping for air. And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to suck the air out of us. And we've got to take a deep, deep breath and make certain that they don't do that. It's going to be work. And it's going to be work because we let the gutter drip too long. And now we've got to do more work than we really wanted to. But once we do that and we fix it, there's a couple things that have to happen. We have to tell ourselves that we will never let this be the way that we are again. And that means, so think about this for a second. When you go about repairing the structural damage that took place because of that gutter or because of the whatever you want to use as the example, you got to dig deep and get all that stuff out. You got to get all that bad wood out. You got to get you guys know what I'm talking about. You got to get way deep and dig all that garbage out of there. That's what we have to do with our country. We got to get all the garbage out if we truly plan on being a country of excellence and great and all the things that we say that we are. We got to dig really deep, and we got to get rid of some stuff. And it means, this is the part that I say is the work, it means that there are people around you that you've got to set straight. You may not have to literally get rid of them, get them out of your lives, but you got to set them straight. You have to be willing to say, I cannot allow myself to live in an environment any longer where I let that person say the things that they say about me, about what I believe and who I am. That's the part that's the work. We've got to push our leaders to say, no, you don't vote yes for something that's going to cause more harm to people. You have to vote no and take the hit that's going to come. But the hit that would come from the voting constituency is a bigger hit than that comes from your quote unquote colleagues in the political office that you serve. You serve the people. So that's work. It may mean more deeper boycotts with certain businesses. Put them on their heels. But I keep saying this because I know it in my heart. It's going to take work. And we've got to be willing, if we believe in this thing that we say we are fighting for, it means that every turn we got to be willing to call people out. We got to be willing to push back. We got to be willing to set some people straight. And we do it in unity. So let's take a quick break, Devin. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. Captain Hugh Molzak's love for the sea started after he finished high school as he served the British Sooners and in 1918 immigrated to the United States. Within 2 years of joining the Marines, Molzak earned his Shipping Master Certificate, the first African-American to do so. In 1921, Molzak was promoted to the rank of captain. In 1942, the SS Booker T. Washington, the first ship to be named after an African-American, was created, and Molzak was offered the position of captain, but he turned it down at first as the Marines did not want to have an integrated crew. Mulzac stood firm on his beliefs, stating, "Under no circumstances will I command a Jim Crow," and Mulzac became the first African-American captain of the first ever integrated crew. Under Captain Mulzac, over 18,000 troops were sent to the European war front, and ships carrying tanks, aircrafts, and ammunition to United States troops in World War II. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Hair Volume from New Nordic will make your hair look thick and healthy. Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and newnordicusa.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. More Arctic air and frigid temperatures are expected in ice and snow-covered parts of the South. At least 30 deaths are reported in states dealing with severe cold. Thousands of Americans are still without power. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter is backing a proposed fan boycott of World Cup matches in the U.S. because of the conduct of President Trump and his administration at home and abroad. Blatter is the latest international soccer figure to question whether the U.S. is suitable to serve as a host country. There's a new free trade deal between the European Union and India. AP correspondent Karen Shamas has more.
After nearly 2 decades of talks, India and the European Union have reached a free trade agreement. The deal, which was finalized on Tuesday in New Delhi, saw European Council President Antonio Costa, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi laughing and locking hands in celebratory poses for the press. The agreement covers 2 billion people and represents 25% of global GDP and 1/3 of global trade. It aims to lower tariffs, ease regulatory barriers, and expand cooperation across goods and services between the EU and India. India will reduce tariffs on 96.6% of EU exports, while the EU will reciprocate for nearly 99% of Indian shipments. The deal also includes a framework for deeper defence and security cooperation, extending the partnership beyond commerce. I'm Karen Shamas.
Israel has recovered the remains of the last hostage who was held in Gaza. The next step is likely to be the reopening of the Rafah crossing, Gaza's border with Egypt, which will allow Palestinians to travel in both directions and will eventually allow more aid to enter the territory. This is AP News. The AP's Lisa Dwyer reports on a posthumous promotion for a group of U.S. soldiers.
7 Japanese American soldiers have been promoted to officer ranks in a solemn ceremony that comes 8 decades after they died fighting for the United States during World War II. The men were students at the University of Hawaii and cadets in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, on track to become Army officers when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Soon after the attack, the U.S. barred those with Japanese ancestry from American military service and deemed them enemy aliens. In 1943, the Army created a segregated combat team for Japanese American soldiers, and they joined, but they were killed fighting in Europe and never had the chance to become officers.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Few spotty snow showers early today, areas of blowing snow likely as well. Mostly cloudy with temperatures holding rather steady. We'll have winds out of the northwest around 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, partly cloudy skies develop, a low near 1 above. By Wednesday, sunshine, high 15 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, a high around 13. Friday, chance for snow late, high 15. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 14.
When the deals drop at Kohl's, you feel it. You see up to 50% off end-of-season must-haves, plus up to 85% off clearance favorites. And suddenly, your whole world narrows to one thought. Must shop now. Your to-do list gone. Your dinner plans forgotten. It's just you and your cart gliding through the store. Yeah, Kohl's deals will do that to a person. Save in-store and online now. Select styles. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohls.com for details.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to the show. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and talking to Pat Creatlow, founder and editor of Up North News, Rohit Chopra, former director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and resident fellow at the Institute of Politics at the Harvard Kennedy School, and Zev Shalev, founder of narrative.org on Substack, Live, Local, and Progressive, weekdays 2 to 5. Here on WCPT, AM 820, heartlandsignal.com, and TuneIn. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by Doug Frazier, Executive Director of the Chicago Help Initiative, which provides meals and social services to those in need while partnering to build community connection, resilience, and independence. They will participate in the February 8th Winter Walk fundraiser. Rico Moore, a freelance journalist based in Washington State, and he's been reporting on conditions in Tacoma, Washington, in the ICE facility that's there. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And tomorrow, New York Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, will be with us. And, of course, our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 and Robert Pate, professor of political science at the University of Chicago, specializing in international security affairs. So that's who we got coming up here today, and then tomorrow, back here tomorrow morning. This gentleman's been with us before, and it's always great to get his take on what's happening in our political craziness that we're in right now. The author of American Schism, How the Two Enlightenments Hold a Secret to Healing Our Nation. That would be the author, Seth David Radwell. Good morning, Seth. Welcome back to Choose Views.
Good morning. It's so great to be back with you, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'll be honest with you. I had said earlier at the beginning of the show, I'm angry right now, yes. And I need to. I want, like all of us, and I've been saying this for the bulk of this morning's show, this first hour, that it's okay for us to be angry. Being frustrated is probably not strong enough of an emotion. But I don't want to tell any people how to be. But I was just trying to say, if you're feeling angry right now, that it's okay to feel angry, because what's happening and what's happened recently should anger us, and not let our, privilege or our denying things to make it any less than that. So that's kind of where I am. I'm optimistic as always, Seth. I'm forward thinking, and I want to keep us going in a positive direction. But it doesn't mean that I'm not angry right now.
Right. Understand.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's that time to feel that. As we've just talked about before, Richard, about 3 years ago, I embarked on a process because, actually more than that, about 4 years ago, because I saw what I thought was our democratic republic coming apart at the seams. And, a lot of people at that time told me, don't worry, we always heal ourselves, things will be okay.
Yeah.
But I think we can't just sit by and watch what is the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world unravel.
Nope.
And it is, as our history shows, and as I write about so much, history really matters because we've been through challenges before, and how we deal with them really matters. And we can learn from our past if we're willing to understand exactly, what the structure and brilliance of our country is in the first place.
Seth, the things that I admire about you is, you made a transition. Excuse me, we transitioned right. in the sense that you were focused in one lane for a long time, and obviously all your skill sets as a gatherer of information and database and studying things. Sometimes it makes it not easy, but writing is a way for you to get all that data that's in your brain out into the masses. But I appreciate the transition that you've made and what you've been contributing to our society these last few years because of your writing. And, Schism is my father would say, man, it's something else. The book is really, I haven't read it in its entirety, but every now and again I'll pull a little bit and I'll read that and go, okay, damn. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in like, okay, the opportunity side of what we can do in terms of holding this experiment together. I talked a little bit before you came on about I could really give a darn what the NRA says right now in this moment. And I was talking about, and a lot of people are saying, what's the NRA have to say? And Devin printed out an article because I hadn't had a chance to grab this early this morning. But when I say that, I look at it from the perspective of, they've been in a different mindset and said different things when there have been shootings in the past. But one of the things that I got that was sent to me is that this, as it ties to what you've talked about, this might be yet another one of those organizations or groups or businesses like the 60-some businesses up in Minnesota that have said that enough is enough. Could this be a crack in the NRA's perspective about guns and violence in America? I don't know, but it's certainly. I know it seems to be worth discussing. Are there fractures? Are there enough fractures right now in the standard bearers of what the right has been doing? Is there enough fracturing from them to start to see some movement? I don't know. I'm asking the question.
I think, well, look, as you referred, my background, as my whole career has been in business. I was CEO of many, many companies, and I made the transition that you talked about because I think the constituency that has to say enough is enough with a loud voice and still hasn't is the business leaders, is the private sector leaders.
Yes.
The NRA, I think, for a whole bunch of reasons we could talk about it, I'm less likely to see a real movement there. What I spend my time doing is my peers, my former peers, CEOs of major businesses, big and small, who lead the private activity, which, of course, is the bulk of what this nation's about in many ways, they should say to each other and their companies and out loud that, our priority is for our businesses and our constituents, but we can't operate in a country that's unraveling, and enough is enough. And, it was the letter from Minnesota of, I think it was 40 or 50 businesses.
It was 60. 60 businesses. 60, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Seth. Sorry about that.
That's right. Those 60 businesses, I think because we've seen too many people on the Hill, with all due respect to our senators and congressmen, the lack of courage in terms of saying enough is enough, it has been, to me, one of the most remarkable things about the last 10 years. And we could cite a lot of examples. And therefore, as I discuss in American Schism, business leaders have the skills, the ability, and the voice to make a difference. But yet, so many, Richard, still keep their heads in the sand. And that's a lot of the work that I'm doing today is talking to CEOs about that.
Seth, I have said the guys could probably pull the first time I said it, it was earlier last year. I said then, and I've said it through the course of this year, and I'm going to say it again now since you reminded us of it so well, that if the business leaders said, you know what, we're more powerful in this moment, we actually can be more or show a certain amount of power equivalent to the president if we just all come together and say, you know what, you're wrecking our economy. And not just the financial wrecking, but you're wrecking the confidence that people have in being safe in this country. And if people don't feel safe, they're not going to come out and spend their money. It's just,
That's right.
We could e-commerce all day long, but people got to get out and go and do stuff. And so I've been saying, and I'm way oversimplifying this, so y'all please be patient with me here. I've been saying for the longest time, the business community, and I know a lot of people want to say, yeah, but the business community is down with the president. Look at all the ones that have contributed to his, campaign and on and on and on. I get that. And I say, when they say enough is enough, why they're not, and we can make assumptions all day long. But if they all came together, the Fortune 1000 said, you know what, we're done with this. This is hurting our shareholders, or there's the potential to hurt our shareholders, then, and say to your point, the elected officials on all levels, on a state legislative level or federal, until you all straighten this out, we are done donating to you, because what we get from you isn't worth what we're getting from our shareholders and our customers. Maybe that's
right.
Maybe that's too much of a reach, but you know.
Well, I talk about this. I sometimes phrase it as the frustrated majority, because if you look at the leaders of our companies, big and small across the country, many of them are more centrist. I mean, they're not particularly far left or right, and they realize what a danger the current administration and the current environment is posing. But as you mentioned, they're too afraid to get engaged or involved. And what happened with the leaders of technology over the course of the 24 election is a case in study. So we also have to remember that there is something called the authoritarian toolkit. So over history, authoritarians have used certain tools to keep businesses in line. And they've done it for centuries. And most recently, of course, in the 20th century, it happened many times. And is a very coordinated effort by the powers that be in Washington to prevent businesses from speaking out. And so, again, as I mentioned, that's the work that I do. Now, why is this so important? Let me just explain for your listeners that it's not only important because of the voice and power that business represents, but I also think that one of the magic formulas from our history that I referred to before is the types of skills and tools that business leaders have. I call it the secret sauce. So things like problem solving in an empirical environment, things like listening to other points of view, things like compromise, all the level-headed things that business leaders use to run their businesses successfully. They need to apply some of those things in the public space. And that again, I think it's starting to happen. I think maybe we're reaching a tipping point. I spend time with a group called Leadership Now Project, which are CEOs all over the country, and the amount of disgust and anger and concern has been raising and going up and up. So we'll see where it leads, Richard. But that is I think the important work for your listeners to understand is that there are many, many business leaders who know we can't continue in this direction, that it's not only not good for business, it's not a place they can raise their children in. It's not a place where you can take advantage of the benefits of an open society that they themselves have profit from.
Yeah. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with Seth David Radwell, author of this wonderful book called American Schism, How the Two Enlightenments Hold the Secret to Healing Our Nation. I want to come back to what you just said, and I'll tell you the picture that was in my mind when you were talking about not raising, being difficult to raise their families in. I thought, my goodness, is it? Because I said earlier, Seth, with this latest shooting, I said, what's next? Is it going to take a white grandmother walking their blonde-haired, blue-eyed granddaughter to preschool to get killed for the country to go, that's enough? What is it really going to take? The other thing that popped into my brain is that business, that CEO, him or her, that inadvertently loses someone because of what ICE is doing right now. And they might be someone on the political right, or like you said, more centrist. Is it going to take that kind of visceral tragedy or reaction to a tragedy? I don't know, but I do. I love what you're saying about how this group that you're a part of, Leadership Now Project, is saying that this is just becoming untenable. And the question that I would have is, how do we, as just regular folks, and how do regular folks that are listeners to my show and others throughout the country tap into that concern, tap into that energy so that we can push, or at least somewhat, maybe nudge, I don't say push, but nudge them to be even more powerful with their voices? Because I do believe, Seth, that is going to be the tool that we haven't used well enough yet.
Well, I was listening to you, what you were talking about before I got on today, about how it's important to stand up, and I don't remember the words you used, not confront, but you were talking about telling someone in your sphere that something is not acceptable.
Set
being
them
able
straight.
To stand up and set them straight is the word you use. Yes, thank you. So let me talk about that for a second, because I was intrigued by that. First of all, you're absolutely right. But the way we do that today is we often try to express ourselves and do that through vehicles like social media, which are not effective because they're making money from rage and fear. Mm-hmm. So the way, it's funny. In American Schism, the book, I talk about two fundamental paths of change I lay out in the third part of the book. One path is structural change. There are some things that are broken structurally, like we need open primaries. We can't have, if I told your listeners, if I said in a non-presidential year, I asked your listeners what portion of the electorate is actually responsible for 400 out of the 435 seats in the House, I don't know what number they'd say, but when I ask audiences this, they say like, only 30% vote, only 40% vote. The answer is actually 8%, because those 400 districts are all gerrymandered, and what counts is the primary. Anyway, my point is there are structural things that are broken. So one path is structural change. But the other path is mindset change, how we relate to each other. The Enlightenment ideals of respect and living in a social contract together. And that's what you were referring to when you said set them straight. And my formula for that is it has to be done in a respectful way, not in an angry way, even though we're angry. And I get people are angry. But you have to say why to colleagues or people in your life who may not may be supportive of an issue that really isn't tenable for society. You have to explain in a very gentle and respectful way why that's not tenable. And I think that's also the mindset behavioral change that we have to foster. One of the problems we have is we have too much interaction today, not in person and sitting down and talking to our neighbors, but through social media, again, as I mentioned, which is a bad structure in my view for doing this.
That's so well laid out, Seth, and thank you for that. And I'm a cheerleader for this book, guys, because it does challenge some of our biases, and that's the thing that I think is where you get the growth. Is you challenge the areas that you've gotten comfortable in, and then you go, okay, wow, there's some growth and betterment on the other side of that challenge. And that's one of the things that I would say the book does is it challenges some of the ways in which we've looked at it. And I like the way you put it in terms of structural change, but the mindset I wrote that down because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget and come back to this.
Right.
But
mindset.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. But mindset change is hard because one of the things that it requires, I'm probably older than many of your listeners, but when I was a kid, a major part of K through 12 education was what we used to call social studies or civics. We really focused on the concepts of what it takes to live together in a diverse society. And by the way, these are things that the Enlightenment ancestors I discuss in the book really talked a lot about. And one of the famous Enlightenment guys, a guy named Condorcet, who was very close to Jefferson and other of our founders, of course, flawed people in many ways, but the ideals they shared were about understanding that to live in a society, you have to educate people about what a democracy is. It doesn't happen by itself. It takes a lot of work. And I think I mentioned K through 12 because I think to some degree the last couple of generations, and maybe, Richard, this is because of STEM and science and technology and math, all important fields, but we can't let them displace completely the kinds of civic education that is so vital. and one of the things that I think has happened here is it's become so controversial to even talk about our history because people say, "Oh, you're telling the wrong story," or "It's one perspective," or "That's not really what happened." And if we don't look at our sins of the past in our country, we're not going to move forward towards a different space, towards a more healthy space. And in some ways, I view the story of America as this incredible ideal that was completely, it was hypocritical because, of course, it was only extended as an ideal of all are created equal to white men with property at the founding. But yet the arc of our history has been one of changing that, of applying that ideal to a greater portion of our citizens over time. And it's never easy. It takes a lot of work, but we have to also recognize that we've been through progress and we keep doing that if we keep our eye on the ball. And that's why civic education is so important.
Yeah, and the crazy part about that, Seth, and you're so right about this, but the pushback, even in that space about civics, is that there are people who there are operators out there that don't want us to even talk about that. They don't want us to discuss civics. We don't want us to discuss things that have really been at the fabric and the strength of our country when it's been strong, with all of its imperfections and enslavement and civil rights and women's rights and income disparity and all the rest. When we've talked about the things that have made us move in a better direction, and now we've got this body of people that don't even want to talk about that. And the irony is the history of the ability for them to be in the life that they live today is because of the history that we have, particularly when it comes to some of the things that we discuss about civics. So
exactly right.
It is this weird irony, and I know you get it, and I know that this is what I love about chatting with you, Seth, is that you and I know we have to reel ourselves both back in from the down the path of nerdism on talking about how we effectively connect with each other, because I always get a chuckle because I'm like, Seth is such a good analyst of this, and really that's why I said your transition from your business success into writing was kind of a nice step, because you had so much data in your head and so many things that were experiential and real that you've been able to apply in this book, and that's one of the reasons that I like the way you've written it. Mindset change and structural change are important. But I think also, and I speak to this a lot, Seth, and people hear me say this all the time, is that taking back our humanity has got to be a part of this conversation. Sure. And if it's not, then we could do all this work, but if we don't change or recapture that, then I think we could unfortunately circle back around and be back at this point again. Yes. But I say that as we wrap up to say something about what you pointed out about how we communicate, setting people right, has to be done with a certain amount of care and empathy. It has to be strong, though. It can't be a withering conversation, because I think that if we allow it to be a withering conversation, then we're still going to be susceptible to being right back at this point again. People have to understand that we're serious about fixing these problems, and if they're not on board with it, then we kind of have to. We have to look for somebody else that is going to be on board with it. I mean, maybe that's leaving some people along the sidelines. But at this point, I think there's a part of us that has to do that if we're going to win this.
I think your point is well taken. I mean, I talk about the need for listening and respect, because I think our conversation has degraded to such a point. The yelling and the anger, and again, it's both on the left and right. It's coming from different places, but so I think it has to be strong, but it also has to recognize that other people have other points of view, and they're not all crazy. They come from a place of fear, of economic difficulties, of the way, for example, we've been taught in the last 10 years to fear immigrants in such a way but of course, our country was built by immigrants in many ways, and they play a vital part. Legal immigration has to work really well so that we don't have so much illegal immigration. And it's got to be fixed as opposed to cast as this horrible thing. So that's just one example of what I mean about kind of understanding and respect that's so vital. But I understand what your point of view about being firm.
We both it's not about being right. We both approaches and strategies are important and integral to the success. Yes. You and I are both saying the goal is the same goal, and we've got to use the tools that are going to be applicable to who we're talking to, whether it be individuals or groups. In your case, some of the business leaders. And I got an interesting text that I'll just say real quick, read parts of it real quickly before we let you go. But if business leaders want to oppose Trump and this movement, that movement has to start from the bottom up. Local store managers have to report upward and start pushing back. And I know that's a lot to kind of take in and process in this short period of time. But I think that speaks again to why each individual right now has got to realize that they've got a stake in this, and that it isn't for somebody else to solve. It's for, and I said that true about business owners as well. They have to realize they've got a stake in it as much as the individual person that doesn't run a business. So
That's right. Well, Richard, keep doing what you're doing. I think it's so. I listen to your show more frequently now that I've gotten to know you, and I really appreciate you being out there. So thanks for having me on, and stay in touch.
I will. We look forward to having you back again, Seth. Get his book, guys, American Schism, How the Two Enlightenments Hold the Secret to Healing Our Nation. Seth David Radwell. Stay safe, my friend, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Always great to have Seth on. Let's go to a quick break. Devin, the number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT Replay.
The professor of political science and women's and gender studies at Brooklyn College and the graduate center of the City University of New York and author of Sex Is As Sex Does, Governing Transgender Identity. Yeah, Paisley Curra.
When we're talking about transgender, I know it's a very big blanket umbrella statement, but when we're in this subject matter, how will we define it?
When it comes to transgender athletes, the policies basically address the people's transition in relation to hormone levels, or the policies that the sports associations are addressing. The legislation that the Republicans have passed are just about whether someone is transgender or not, and that anybody who's transgender is just automatically, in much of this legislation, barred from participating. So the sports associations are have a much more sophisticated approach in terms of looking at making sure that that the policies are as inclusive as possible and no one has an unfair advantage.
Listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Jose and Laura came to Brookfield Tax Planning worried about their taxes. After their free, no-obligation tax reduction review, they discovered they'd been overpaying $8,100 every year for 28 years. That's $227,000 of hard-earned money gone forever. Why? Jose and Laura's financial advisor did nothing to reduce their taxes, and their accountant records history after the year ends when it's too late to use legal, proactive tax reduction strategies for business owners and retirees. 94% of Brookfield's clients discover they've wasted thousands for years due to passive advisors. Brookfield Tax Planning reviews your returns free and can show you how much you're overpaying, how to plan ahead now to stop it. You risk nothing. But this may be the most profitable hour you'll invest all year. Call Brookfield Tax Planning at 708-485-3439 or visit BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com. That's BrookfieldTaxPlanning.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Few spotty snow showers early today, areas of blowing snow likely as well. Mostly cloudy with temperatures holding rather steady. We'll have winds out of the northwest around 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, partly cloudy skies develop, a low near 1 above. By Wednesday, sunshine, a high 15 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, a high around 13. Friday, chance for snow late, high 15. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 14.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278. WCPT Senate Candidate Forum with Raja Krishnamurthy, Juliana Stratton, and Robin Kelly is happening Friday, February 6th at 1 p.m. I'll be moderating the forum along with Joan Esposito, Patty Vasquez. If you want to attend this event, it's free. Visit heartlandsignal.com/forum and register today. Seating is limited. If you are wondering about parking, forum attendees can use a multi-level parking garage on the site for just $5 per car. So there you go. That's a Chicago thing. Always got to be concerned about parking. So, I often say this. We've got so many great players out there, so many people that are doing the hard work and making sure that we as a country are getting along and moving forward. But one of the things that has to be in place for that to happen is for our health to be in good order. And when we have experts in that space, we need to keep them all around, keep them on the team. And that's why I'm so proud to have on with us again, former Chief Medical Officer for the Centers for Disease Control. And you guys know this name, Dr. Debra Houry. She's the person that had the guts to say enough is enough. And I used a phrase earlier about setting things straight. She set things straight. But now she's done what great leaders do, and that's moved into the next phase. Good morning, Dr. Houry, and welcome back to Choose Views. It's great to have you on the show again.
Good morning.
How are you doing? I know. Wait, before you answer that question, I'm making an assumption that you are in the state of Georgia right now. Fair enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll start there. I'm not going to give too much of a geo where you are. So are you driving anywhere, or are you just staying in the house because of the weather that y'all got?
The ice is mostly gone now, so I was able to drive yesterday. So.
Okay, well, that's good.
But yes, it is different for us here than Chicago. So.
Well, it's different for us. It's different for you, for those who haven't lived in this like we have here. But, either way, we always want our folks to be safe wherever they are in the country. My sister and brother-in-law live in D.C., and they're both from, Chicago, the Midwest, so they know what it's like. But it still doesn't change the fact that it's 7 degrees
it's cold.
It's still cold. Well, Dr. Houry, thank you so much for being with us. I say this about folks that we have a chance to interview and talk with that are subject matter experts, that are professors, doctors, authors. You guys put in the work a little bit differently than the rest of us when it comes to studying something and understanding the importance of it. And in the opening, I talked about right now, for us to fight and stay in this game, we've got to be healthy. We've got to have our health be a thing that we are all leaning into and that we're mindful of. And right now, there's an attack on our health. I think, no matter how we look at it, there's an attack on our health by the federal government. And we saw it in the way in which they changed policy on budgeting that then affects care for people. And that's a broad way of saying that they mess with health care, they mess with Medicare and Medicaid, both, I say, and now dealing with the potential for viruses and where we are in the season. So talk a little bit about, if you can, why health is so important in your experience, and what now with the work that you're doing with Governor Newsom, why you guys are sort of tying this all together as part of how we go forward as a nation.
Yeah, and thanks for having me back. I think all of us want to live healthy, productive lives and have good quality of life. And we rely on health departments to really provide a lot of that guidance and support. And what's unfortunate is with Secretary Kennedy's leadership, or lack thereof, we are not seeing support to health departments. We're seeing the opposite. When you see things like the measles cases right now, we had the highest number of cases in the U.S. for 2025 in over 30 years. Over 2,000 cases, and 2026 is, off to the races as well, with several hundred cases. And the majority, about 93%, aren't vaccinated. This is when you need a federal health leader to be talking about the importance of vaccination. And we saw the opposite, actually, from CDC, with the new principal deputy director saying, this is the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And, as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, I can't imagine the cost of doing business, meaning that I have a loved one in the hospital or a loved one that dies when it's vaccine preventable.
Yeah. I mean, so let me ask you this for all of our audience all over the country. How fast does or can measles spread? And what's the data out there that you want our listeners to be aware of?
Yeah, I think measles is like one of the most contagious viruses, and for every person that has measles, up to 18 others can get infected. And that's why we're seeing hundreds of people near me in South Carolina being quarantined. And it's not a harmless childhood disease. We've seen people get encephalitis from it. It wipes out your immune system, so then you get other viruses later. And there's been fatalities. I think what's important to realize about measles elimination is it's not about whether or not we get measles cases coming in globally. It's, are we preventing continuous spread domestically? And that's what we are failing to do.
What is the role of education, and I guess I mean both pieces of education, the formal in class, whether it be K through 12, post that in college and grad and whatever else. What's the integration of education and social education, or maybe a better word is awareness, when it comes to disease and disease management?
Yeah, so certainly a lot of this you learn in, high school biology, around cells and immunity. And then you also learn stuff in health class about how not to spread diseases, washing your hands, good hygiene, turning your head and covering your mouth when you cough, and staying up to date on vaccinations. And we're just really seeing an erosion of that for even things like flu now. We've seen, again, a bunch of kiddos, unfortunately, dying from flu. And we know that most of them have also been under or unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. And, this is cold weather. Everybody's gathering together indoors. That's ripe for spreading respiratory viruses. And I think we're seeing just in general less emphasis on science and data and medical evidence in our country. So-called experts can say what they want on Twitter, and kind of go toe to toe with scientists who've been doing this for years.
Yeah, and it's got to be in some way heartbreaking, but I know that you're a fighter when you see something out there that's on social media and you read it, somebody posted something and then they've got 10,000 followers that contribute, and you go, I'm putting words in your mouth, Dr. Houry, y'all have lost your damn mind. There's no way that makes any medical or scientific or biological sense. How do you navigate when you see that stuff and you're just like, what the heck, people? Sorry.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's where, my ER doc roots help, because you try to keep it really simple and keep it focused. It's on preventing illness and lessening those consequences. And I've learned that it's difficult to combat misinformation, because many people have lots of followers and can continue to promote it, but we can continue to promote accurate information. And so that's the work I'm doing with California and now with Yale, around ensuring that different communities are getting the right information at the right time to protect their health. Because again, we should all want to ensure people have access to good health care, can protect themselves, and know what the medical evidence shows to do.
When you were on last time, we talked about what your work is with Governor Newsom's new task. I'm going to call it task force, but we'll get to that in a second because you've gotten even more fancy with your latest distinguished activities with Yale. So let our audience know more about what that means and the importance of it.
Yeah, so now I'm going to be a senior fellow at Yale, helping with a lot of the chronic disease prevention and with some of the health policy aspects, working with students and other faculty and looking at how we can, across the U.S., continue to do research in these areas and, promote accurate health information.
Yeah, it's promote accurate health information is so critically important because, one of the things that I see a lot, Dr. Houry, is if you're on social media, you'll see advertisements for so many different solutions to a condition. and it's crazy because, like, I'll take every now and again, I will decide, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go down the rabbit hole because I want to see what I can learn and then go back to what you kind of touched on, the misinformation and the disinformation on certain things when it comes to this thing that we live in called our body. And it is fascinatingly scary, but not scary, but like eye-opening of what's being advertised as a solution on social media. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective, if you would.
Yeah, I think, it's very disheartening when you see, things like ivermectin. I even saw that proposed as a treatment for measles. Yeah. Sorry. And certainly there are some things that can work, such as vitamin A. We've seen that for malnourished, children, that can be a treatment, but many other things aren't a treatment, and there's ways to prevent it. Many supplements are being proposed as kind of cure-alls, and certainly healthy diets are important, but again, vaccines can prevent some of these debilitating illnesses. And so I think when we see these things on social media, look and see what's the evidence around it. Like, is there actually research? Is it in a peer-reviewed journal, or was it, from somebody's Facebook page, And I think that's where we have to be able to really distill the evidence. And I hate to say it, but not just take, a tweet at face value, but like click on the link, see where the information's coming from. And if it seems kind of incredulous, it probably is.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said I've made the decision, and I probably do this every other week. I will go down the rabbit hole on some of the things that I see that are supposedly solutions or medical, ideas and choices and recommendations to see where it ends up. And then and many times I'll go, well, that's something that's not going to be particularly credible, or certainly not something that I would use or recommend or whatever. But it has become more and more prevalent. Based on...
Well, and my confession along those lines would be, when I was at CDC, I'd read several of Secretary Kennedy's books to try to, understand where he was coming from. And I did the same thing. When something seemed, off, I then looked at the reference, and I was really disappointed to see that those were to retracted studies or to Snopes sometimes, but that's where if something doesn't make sense, drill down a level and see if there's research behind it.
Absolutely. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with Dr. Debra Houry, who is... I hate to talk about the former but the former was great. What you did at CDC was fantastic. But she is a former chief medical officer at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and she has now gotten fancy again and is the distinguished physician and with Yale School of Public Health. Let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing with PHNIX, if I'm saying it correctly, and the work that has come about since Governor Newsom announced this partnership and this venture that you guys are on. What's been some of the bright spots and things that have been happening? How can people get their heads right about what you're going to be doing and why that's so important to not just a segment of the country, but the entire country?
Yeah, and it truly will be for the broader country. I've been working primarily in California, but one of the things we're looking at is collaboration and partnerships. And so we'll be having a convening for approximately 12 states in the spring to look at, what are some shared priorities when it comes to data, to preparedness, to responding to outbreaks that, across several regions states can do, and how can you use evidence-based practices to do that. And I'm excited that we've had interest from blue, red, and purple states because, this is about health. And the other thing we're doing is looking at collaborations globally as well, because the United States unfortunately withdrew from the World Health Organization, which means we are less prepared to respond to global threats. So California has now become the first state to join the Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network. And what that means is now they have situational awareness and are working with about 300 partner institutions through the World Health Organization to help respond globally. And that allows California, other states also are now considering it, to be able to be aware of health threats. That still doesn't replace what the CDC was doing though. And we've seen that global pathogens and virus samples have decreased.
Wow. So, okay. Now that you set the stage and the table for that, two things came to mind that I wrote down. 12 states. As you look down the path and look, maybe as a business person as well, when you look down and say who are our target states, how many might be coming online? That's part A of the question, and then the second part is what did it take for California to say, yeah, we're gonna join, we're gonna be a more direct partner
with the Global Health Organization?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the first question with the different states, we're just trying to stay within the region to start. And so reaching out to neighboring states. And I've been talking with many of the health officers and staff to really understand what does it look like to be a good partner. It's going to look different because of different sensitivities. So, what are things we agree are priorities across those states? And then how do we determine how best to share information, how regularly to meet? And so I think it's still a work in progress, but one that, as I see, the Northeast has their own collaborative as well. I've been trying to be in touch with them to ensure there's good coordination across a lot of these regional efforts. And then globally, with things like FIFA coming, to the United States, it was just really important, for California to have that global awareness. And so, honestly, it's important for the U.S. to have that global awareness, but California, being the fourth largest economy, thought it was really important that they were able to participate in this network.
And particularly given that the Summer Olympics will be in California as well.
Yes.
And that's going to bring an additional amount of responsibility and all the things that come with that kind of a global event. How do I want to phrase this? I guess I'll just ask the question. Immigration is a big, big concern right now. And I think when I say that, let me clean that up a little bit. How people are being treated in this conversation around immigration is a big concern. The one thing that I don't hear people talk about, though, is how immigration is tied to our health system and how people who have health concerns are getting their health concerns are being magnified because of how they're being treated inside the immigration system today with this current administration. How are you trying to navigate or help in that space or provide counsel or advice in terms of the health system inside of immigration, if that makes sense?
It does, and I haven't had as much visibility into it. What I would just say is, for emergency departments, you always want to be able to take care of anyone, that is there for a medical emergency, and you don't want people to not come to the emergency department for fear of deportation. And then you also want people to, have preventative treatment and immunization so that there's not continuous spread of infectious diseases. And those are important things that we need to make about global travel. It doesn't take much, for a disease to travel around the world. And that's why I think it's important to realize that our borders are porous. And so we need to make sure that we are always screening for health threats and responding quickly.
And it seems that right now that's the least of the concern is the health of the people that are that are caught up in the immigration challenge. It's less about villainizing people and more about vilifying people, and less about actually taking care of the people and making sure that their health is sustained during their process and challenge with their immigration
I would say
status.
even more broadly than that. I mean, you look at what's happened this month. SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, had $2 billion in grants for mental health services across the U.S. canceled and then reinstated. And then just over the weekend, CDC had a similar thing for all the public health departments for all 50 states. They had $350 million canceled. And then it was reinstated, but it wasn't a mistake. When you look at the quotes from HHS in the paper, they said it was to evaluate the programs. You can evaluate without stopping. Yes. And this is extremely disruptive to healthcare for everybody in the United States.
Yeah, and that word disruption seems to be a constant with this administration in so many different categories. I mean, look at tariffs, on and off, disruption. Healthcare, on, off, disruption. And the list goes on. But, we'll save that for the next time that we have you on. What's on the top of your list right now? A couple of things that you are just really laser focused on and are important. I know the big picture is important, but what are some of the things that are top of your list of to-dos right now?
I think one of the things is just ensuring that states are prepared to respond to changes in the vaccine schedule. And the American Academy of Pediatrics, I think it was just yesterday, released their schedule. And so many states are now adopting the American Academy of Pediatrics schedule versus CDC. So one of the things I'm really, focusing on is how do we ensure that people know what that schedule is, understand the access and reimbursement issues, I also am trying to ensure that there's timely data within the states and the region when it comes to a lot of these infectious diseases, and then that our messaging is really clear on the changes to our global awareness. And so I've been engaged in some of these calls as well when it comes to the Global Outbreak and Alert Response Network.
Got it. So when you talk about the schedule, the difference between the city, help us understand a little bit better, excuse me, what that means, why it's important in this space right now.
Yeah, so CDC changed several vaccines to shared decision-making and not primarily recommended based on Denmark's schedule. And that's something for another time. Denmark is a very different country with a very different health system and is actually an outlier. You know, if you look at other countries like the UK and Canada, the US was more aligned with vaccines. But so things like rotavirus, hepatitis A, hepatitis B are now being moved to shared clinical decision-making versus primarily recommended. Same thing for meningitis. And I can tell you, as an ER doc who saw cases of meningitis, this is something we don't want to start seeing again. I mean, talk about a devastating disease. And then the other change is the HPV vaccine, or for human papillovirus. CDC is recommending 1 dose and starting it later, and the AAP is still recommending 2 and starting it earlier. What's the downside of 1 versus the 2? I mean, it seems common sense, but what's the differences there? So I think 1 is we just need more evidence to determine 1 versus 2. There have been some studies that show that 1 does a good job. 2 provides, more lasting and broader protection, but we still need more evidence to determine long-term. Mm-hmm. So I think science should be driving decisions, not ideology. and that's what we're seeing. So, Dr. Debra Houry, it is so great to have you with us. I get excited about talking to you because we have certain things in common, all of us, and that's this body that we live in, and to have it be as healthy as it possibly can is critically important to our survival and to our prosperity and all the rest. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you for staying committed and kind of being on the front line of fighting this fight. It really means a lot to all of us. My pleasure. Stay warm and stay healthy. You stay warm and you stay healthy down there. Thanks, Dr. Houry, for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon, okay? Bye-bye now. All right, guys, check out Dr. Houry. You can just Google her name. The last name is spelled Houry, Dr. Debra Houry, and she is just phenomenal. If you want to have a person to follow or someone to really look into what they're doing, she is one of those people. I recommend that you look at the work that she's doing now with this new group called Public Health Network Innovation Exchange. Wow, music. End of the show. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. It's always a pleasure. And as I say every day, take a deep breath and make your life count. And stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. We'll see you tomorrow.
It's the Paulacious One, coming to you from the file room of the basement of WCPT 820 in Chicago. Checking the file on the Sports Cubicle. The hosts, systems analyst Mike Mercado, project manager Devin Tingle, the marvelous one, Dan Marver in accounting, and me, well, it doesn't matter what I do. You can check us out, the Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Central on WCPT 820 Chicago. Gotta go, Sports Cubicle, 9 p.m. Sundays, WCPT.
WCPT 820 will be hosting a candidate forum for the 3 leading candidates for Illinois' open United States Senate seat in the Democratic primary on February 6th.
Please join us at the Plumbers Hall at 1340 West Washington in Chicago, or listen to the live broadcast.
Representative Raja Krishnamurthy, Representative Robin Kelly, and Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton will be discussing their stances on the issues and making their case for your vote.
WCPT hosts Patty Vasquez, Richard Chu, and of course Jonas Esposito will be moderating the forum.
To attend in person, go to heartlandsignal.com/WCPT820 and register. We'll have limited seats available, so please register early.
Meet the leading Senate Democratic candidates at a free WCPT Live Candidate Forum at Plumbers Union Hall, Local 130 on Washington Street in Chicago, Friday, February 6th.
The forum starts at 1 p.m. and is sponsored by Plumbers Union Local 130.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Horowitz and Associates. Cliff Horowitz's grandfather started this family law firm, and he always said, you know what, if we're going to get full justice for our clients, we have to go to trial. Trial, though, can be very time-consuming. That's why most firms won't go to trial. They just settle for the insurance company's offer. But the Horowitz family spent a century going to trial. They're taking cases to trial now, and they're winning many record-setting verdicts. Cliff Horowitz is a third-generation trial lawyer, getting people the full justice they deserve. Call 312-800-8000 or go to horowitzlaw.com.
File now with TurboTax and Intuit Credit Karma. They'll find every credit and deduction or your money back. File in the Credit Karma app.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. More Arctic air and frigid temperatures are expected in ice and snow-covered parts of the South. At least 30 deaths are reported in states dealing with severe cold. Thousands of Americans are still without power. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter is backing a proposed fan boycott of World Cup matches in the U.S. because of the conduct of President Trump and his administration at home and abroad. Blatter is the latest international soccer figure to question whether the U.S. is suitable to serve as a host country. There's a new free trade deal between the European Union and India. AP correspondent Karen Shamas has more.
After nearly 2 decades of talks, India and the European Union have reached a free trade agreement. The deal, which was finalized on Tuesday in New Delhi, saw European Council President Antonio Costa, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi laughing and locking hands in celebratory poses for the press. The agreement covers 2 billion people and represents 25% of global GDP and 1/3 of global trade. It aims to lower tariffs, ease regulatory barriers, and expand cooperation across goods and services between the EU and India. India will reduce tariffs on 96.6% of EU exports, while the EU will reciprocate for nearly 99% of Indian shipments. The deal also includes a framework for deeper defence and security cooperation, extending the partnership beyond commerce. I'm Karen Shamas.
Israel has recovered the remains of the last hostage who was held in Gaza. The next step is likely to be the reopening of the Rafah crossing, Gaza's border with Egypt, which will allow Palestinians to travel in both directions and will eventually allow more aid to enter the territory. This is AP News. The AP's Lisa Dwyer reports on a posthumous promotion for a group of U.S. soldiers.
7 Japanese American soldiers have been promoted to officer ranks in a solemn ceremony that comes 8 decades after they died fighting for the United States during World War II. The men were students at the University of Hawaii and cadets in the Reserve Officer Training Corps, on track to become Army officers when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Soon after the attack, the U.S. barred those with Japanese ancestry from American military service and deemed them enemy aliens. In 1943, the Army created a segregated combat team for Japanese American soldiers, and they joined, but they were killed fighting in Europe and never had the chance to become officers.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Few spotty snow showers early today, areas of blowing snow likely as well. Mostly cloudy with temperatures holding rather steady. We'll have winds out of the northwest around 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, partly cloudy skies develop, a low near 1 above. By Wednesday, sunshine, a high 15 degrees. Thursday, mostly sunny, a high around 13. Friday, chance for snow late, high 15. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 14.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
If you're looking to purchase a home after a divorce, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Today, meet Charlie, field technician, income $100,000 a year, had an amicable divorce from his wife. Charlie wanted to purchase a home while he was in the middle of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy to be close to his 3 kids, so he called Team Hochberg for a free consultation. Great move. Team Hochberg loan officer John Hendrickson answered Charlie's questions, secured a bankruptcy court approval so Charlie could purchase a new home to be close to his 3 kids. Let's review. Team Hochberg loan officer Johnny Hendrickson helped Charlie purchase a new home after his divorce while in the middle of a bankruptcy so he could be close to his 3 kids. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or visit that website you know and love, 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, and MLS 112-4061.
Today, 1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job. For the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
This is WCPT 820.